All right. Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast, where we discuss all things fantasy. Today we are here with the awesome guest author, Susan Faw, author of the Spirit Shield Saga, and has just released a new book in a new series called Heart of Destiny, Book 1 of the Heart of the Citadel. I'm also here with my co-host, Andy Peliquin, author of the Last Bucellari series, and he's not actually being a writer this week because he hasn't written it all.
That's not quite true. I've managed to get in about 8,000 words since Monday, but considering last week was a 20,000 word week, it was kind of sort of a record because I was super motivated with this new story. So
you made up for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm way ahead of schedule. I had planned to have this story finished by mid-October, so I'm happy because I'm way ahead of schedule. So. I noticed, Stevie, that every podcast you do a new introduction, it changes every time.
Yeah, I'm like a gecko. I just kind of change. Like, I don't know, a gecko, a chameleon. Well, anything that morphs. I definitely don't just. I like to change things up, and I always have a new insult for you at the beginning because throughout the show I will be insulted multiple times.
Hey, I didn't comment on your hair or beard this time, so we're off on a great foot.
I actually combed today.
I can't.
I know.
For those of you who are listening to our podcast, Stevie's beard is sticking out in all directions. There's a couple little twigs and some bits of food around his mouth. And his hair is just sort of like hanging emo style down his forehead, Joe Jonas style. So.
Luckily, I'm taken already, so now the girlfriend just has to stick with it now. She's with me for my personality. Susan, something very interesting about Susan is, and maybe a lot of her readers don't know, is that she was actually an insurance investigator, right? She's the kind of people you don't want coming to your house. Am I right, Susan?
Most people don't want me to come to their house if I'm doing investigations. No.
Yeah.
What type of insurance were you investigating for? Like home insurance or?
I was property casualty adjuster. So for the last 30 years, anything related to home damage or on the casualty side, it could have been automobile accidents, motorcycle accidents, slip and falls, restaurants, that kind of thing. Anything that would happen that would trigger a policy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's the craziest thing that you investigated? Like
I was just about to ask.
Oh, I knew you were going to get to that. Over a course of 30 years, there's a lot of crazy things that happen. It's hard to compartmentalize and come up with just one thing. But the things that stick out most in my mind are usually related to trauma of some sort. It could be someone who's died in their home and nobody finds them for a few days and really messy. Motorcycle accidents. People that drive their ninja bike like a fool on the highway and rear end the transport truck and not much left. Those kind of things stick in your mind. Usually very tragic. House fires.
Yeah.
Where the family dies and you're trying to deal with the family.
I was thinking more funny stuff. You were thinking more gory stuff.
Well, that kind of stuff's very much part of the job, right? On a funny side, well, a lot of my thoughts go back around Houston right now because this would have been the kind of thing I would have done, in the past. When a catastrophe would happen like that, I'd be one of the first people to go on that kind of a trip. And as you watch those kind of events unfold, it's like I know firsthand on the ground exactly what that scenario is. I understand how hard it's going to be to recover from it and how long it will take. And the dynamics that you experience when you're dealing with people in very tragic or very trying circumstances tells you a lot about human nature and how they react to stress. So now that I'm, kind of backed away from that, I find that I pull a lot of that experience in when I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very visual writer. So, if I'm describing a, forest fire in my scenes, I know what that forest fire smells, tastes, feels like because I've been that close. So, I'm very visceral in the way I describe things and how I bring it to the page. And I'm kind of happy to leave that career behind.
Yeah.
But it does inform a lot of what I do and how I write and how I approach, my literature.
I'm actually
go ahead, Steve.
Sorry. I was just going to say I'm actually 2 hours away from Houston, so I about got in a wreck coming to my apartment because our gas prices are going up so much right now that people are trying to get to the gas stations and they're acting like complete fools. I'm like, geez, just trying to get home here. But I mean, like anyway, it's crazy here. I was locked in my apartment for 3 days while that storm was going on.
Yeah.
It was exactly crazy. A lot of good, depressing writing got done. A lot of good. Whole short story.
Howling, it's a good thing, right? You know exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, the short story I just wrote over the weekend, I just busted it out, 10,000 words, and it's the darkest story I've ever written. Has a lot of I guess you could say allegories from the Bible, kind of like little Easter eggs. And the main antagonist is a mixture of the devil and Rick from Rick and Morty, this TV show. So it's crazy. I had a blast writing it, and I just self-edited it, and I'm going to put it on Insta Freebie. And now I'm actually nervous about the Insta Freebie crowd. Thank you, Susan. Thank you.
Insta Freebie crowd's great. They love to read. They're voracious readers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going back to what you were talking about, Susan, that segues nicely into the topic of the week, which is using that real life experience and putting that into your writing. I know when I was writing Blade of the Destroyer, my first novel, I was actually taking martial arts lessons at the time. And so reading over the way that I wrote it, everything was very much about the technique and the form and the precision and the movement. And like I described the fighting because I was picturing it in my head and sort of imagining my training in the story. Like the character that I was writing was doing the movements that I was learning at the time. And then now that I've started writing, the stop training and my stories have continued, there's a lot less technicality and precision to the fight scenes, so to speak. They're still accurate, visceral, all that stuff, but there's not as much focus on the nitty gritty. And what you were saying is about writing these visceral scenes because what things taste like, what they smell like, what they, like I'm sure you were talking about walking into a home with a dead body. That's got to be a really strong smell coming at you, like that wall of smell that they describe in novels. That must be
you never forget that smell. And I can actually tell when I read somebody's writing if they've actually experienced it or not, just by the way that they describe. And I think anybody that has very specific knowledge, if you were an undertaker for a living, or a police officer, or fireman, first responder, you know those things, and you'll see, I think a lot of people, they will actually write in a genre that parallels what they do. So a police officer will write police procedurals or detective stories, or because they know it so well. A doctor will write medically stories that are based around medical center, that kind of thing, because they can bring that realness to it, and you work in some of the other things. But I think this applies to anybody's career path that they go through. You can be a waitress, and if all you do is serve plates all day long, you see a cross section of humanity, and you see the interactions on the positive side and the negative side, and how people respond to the smallest of irritations. And there's a lot that you can bring from any kind of career path that can help broaden your base in your stories and make them more real. Yeah,
I know a lot of our listeners are wondering right now, what does a dead body smell like? Or a room with a corpse inside of it that's been rotting in there?
You just said it. You've
It
ever
smells
had
like a rotting corpse.
something go bad in the fridge and you pull it out and it's like, whoa. It's like that and worse, but there is a particular smell that comes to a dead person as opposed to a dead dog or a dead cat. It's just a different element. Yeah, you really want to go there.
Wow, Andy, I could have sworn you describe it in Blade of the Destroyer.
I'm sure I did. I mean, all of my he's an assassin. Dead bodies are sort of his stock and trade. So, but yeah, when I was writing that, I was thinking of all the times that I got stuck cleaning up animal carcasses and stuff. Like, I know it's not quite identical, like you were saying. There is a slightly different smell to it, but then there is that same sickly sweet.
Sweet. I was just gonna say it's a very sweet kind of odor that comes from that. Yeah, depending on how long it sat there.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's fun. You know, like I said, I'm not sad to eat.
It sounds like it's an absolute blast.
You know what? And on a weird way, if you want to really go there,
I do.
There is an adrenaline rush that comes in that kind of employment. You know, when you get that Monday morning, you know, total lost fire call, right? That you're going out, you got a new claim, and you know, this is what you're handling for the next who knows how long. Yeah, there is that pump of adrenaline that will kick right in, and it's like, okay, I've got so much to do here. You know, there's so much to organize. You know, the people you're going to be meeting, you know, within the next hour are completely traumatized. They just lost everything. You know,
yeah.
And you know, they're crying, wailing, gnashing of teeth. It's you know, so much in those kind of situations as far as employment is related. It's not. I'll get my thoughts together here. One of my favorite things to always say was, I've never had a house talk back to me yet. You know, I've never had a car talk back to me yet. It's not about the thing. It's about the people who own the thing. They're the ones that you're managing. They're the ones who you're going to have to work with, right? It's the house is a house. The house is a house. You know, it's sticks and it's bricks. But the people, managing their emotions and their trauma and their expectations and all that type of thing. You learn a lot about human nature and, you know, the buttons that people like to push and their motivations, for good or for bad. Not everybody's house that burnt was, you know, a sad accident.
This kind of reminds me of a thought I had the other day while I was driving, and that thought was, I wish I had taken a psychology class in college. Yes. I really wish I had. That way I could have gotten behind the minds of my characters a little bit better. And, you know, I'm younger. I don't have life experience like a lot of these other authors do. And it's something I don't take it for granted whenever a new experience does happen. And Orson Scott Card did say, you know, treat life like you can actually use life as a what's it called? A blueprint. Practice. So as a what?
Blueprint?
Yeah, something like that. And that every scenario you can like think, hey, how could I put this into a story, or what could I take from this this situation that just happened? And that's what you reminded me of, Susan. And I'm a little jealous. Maybe next time I have some dead rotten corpse of my story, I'm going to email you and say, hey. So, but that's really cool. And Andy, is there any work experience that you've had? You know, any real life experience? Are we talking work related or real life experiences?
Anything. That's the beauty of it, is that you can use any experience that you've had and translate it into fascinating things. For example, Susan, as you were talking about houses burning down, you know, that whole insurance adjuster thing, I was thinking of the Queen of the Night Guild. There's a whole fire destruction scene, and the main character is investigating the source of the fire. And I was thinking, oh man, that would be really good knowledge to have. And the character's a thief, so it's got no relation to an insurance adjuster. But just being able to, you know, to pinpoint the source of the fire, or to identify what sort of accelerant was used, or you know,
or to deconstruct that and to create the perfect scene of how he would, you know, MacGyverish pull together something that needs to happen. If you already understand how it does happen, right? Then
exactly.
You just,
yeah. But then translate that into something completely different. The process that you went through in your investigations of, you know, determining whether a fire was arson or an accident or faulty wiring. Now translate that into your main character, who happens to be a palace guard trying to find out who assassinated the king, right? You know the process of investigations that you would go through as an insurance adjuster. So then use that, like translate that into the process that your captain of the guard would use. Okay, how would he identify the source, the suspect? You know, like that sort of experience can be translated into so many different things. And even the most innocuous seeming experience, something as simple as, I mean, Stevie, you just spent 3 days trapped inside your house, essentially, with your house boarded up. I had this picture of Brandon Sanderson's High Storms.
Yes.
From the Words of Radiance series, the Stormlight Archives. And I was like, how much do you want to bet that he got that idea or a very similar experience, being surrounded by this massive storm that's overwhelming, and then of course his creative mind just, you know, took it into some amazing places. But any experience can be translated into an interesting story. It just takes that sort of that creative mindset, that creative thinking process to translate it to whatever you want.
Well, interesting fact about the short story I just wrote, The Awakening, by the way, prequel to the Four Territories. Most of the setting is it's raining. Actually, in the entire short story, it's raining. So I just thought about it now that we're talking about it. So yeah, it's weird how I just kind of wrote that in. So
yeah, be prepared for the review that says there's no way they can rain for that long.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Luckily, it's only 2 days long. So yeah.
They've never been to England or Scotland.
True that. Yeah, that is. I was shocked when I visited those countries how much it rained, and not just that. When the sky is like gray, you know, just all the time, it's just gray. You know, just overcast. So.
Oh man, today I had the most amazing experience that I want to put into a story. I was jogging on the beach, and it was super misty, so I could see maybe 10 meters in every direction, and it was just like a solid wall of mist. And I was just, you know, my mind was, you know, thinking about what sort of monsters would be hiding in the mist.
Yeah, I was thinking monsters.
What story to do with that? Yeah. You know, it was so cool. And actually, something that translated from my real life into my writing is in Blade of the Destroyer. There's this scene where the hunter is in the fancier part of town, and he goes to this big, basically park, you know, and he sees these trees, and these trees, they're called snow blossom trees, which is my definition or my world's version of cherry blossom trees,
Sakura,
where I was born. Exactly. Those things are everywhere. But then there's these parts of Tokyo or parts of the country where the streets are just lined with them. So you walk down these streets and it's like a carpet of pink and white petals, and the smell in the air is so sweet. And I just had these memories of being a teenager or a child and walking through these parks, you know, the happiness that I felt. And then this character who's this cynical, dark, half demon assassin, levity, when he has this sense memory of these trees that he really likes. And it was translated directly from a sense memory that I had and put into the pages. And so, you know, like authors, we tend to do that both consciously and subconsciously. And it's really interesting to sort of think about, okay, this author wrote that. Where did that come from?
Are we frozen or is nobody talking?
Yeah, everyone just was like, my wisdom was just overwhelming.
I'm jealous that you actually got to, I'm jealous to get to see cherry blossoms. I really want to go see those. So back to your mist idea. Soon I pictured you like this 9-foot giant running through the mist, and then all of a sudden an arrow comes through the fog, and you dodge just in time, and you grab it and you break it in your fist because you're mad. And it's me.
Because that's what giants do. They're very quick reflexed sort of characters.
Yeah, this one is. And I was the archer, so. And my next arrow actually gets you, and then they call Susan to come and investigate it.
So we just have to figure out the trajectory. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Do the whole blood spatter analysis, full on Dexter it.
So I'll go ahead and talk about my experience, and I'm gonna take it from the degree I got in business, and I work too long during the day, and my brain is just constantly on marketing and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so I've actually started dreaming about my job and, you know, being behind a computer all day and working. And I wake up thinking about the marketplace that I've created and stuff like this. But anyway, this next book I'm writing is about a drug lord, and I'm watching Breaking Bad now too. So it kind of inspired me. It's like, oh, I want to do a drug lord. I want to do a mean drug lord that the reader actually likes for some reason. So it's going to be my challenge. But I think my favorite part of this story is going to be actually creating the business around this drug kingdom.
Cartel.
And when I'm sorry.
Cartel.
Yeah,
that sounds like so much fun. Like crafting the clever way that he distributes, the clever marketing tactics that he uses. I love the sound of that. That's something I've thought of doing, but I just don't have the marketing or business experience.
I'm excited. Yeah, I really want to give so like when I'm watching Breaking Bad, there's subtle things I don't think a lot of people see that I have seen, like, oh, I see how they're doing this, and this. And I see things in the future, like the money laundering thing, where he has to go through the lawyer. I saw that way in advance. I'm like, how are they going to get this money clean? How are they going to report it? Stuff like that. And I really want to put this in, you know, into my newest book. And my favorite part is going to be distribution. How are they going to distribute this drug? And what made me excited about this this part of the book is a scene popped in my head. That's usually how it works for me. And it's one of his distributors can't get into the kingdom because I think his caravan gets attacked by you know, thieves or something. But there's really one small thing in there that our protagonist needs. It's one small thing. The rest is just miscellaneous stuff to throw off the guards. And our protagonist, who's a mean dude, and he's super, like, I guess you could say posh, you know, Andy, posh. And he never lowers himself to these small things, but no one else can do it. So he actually has to go, and he has to put this thing up his butt and sneak into the kingdom. And I'm so excited to get to that scene because he's going to be so mad. And spoiler alert, I'm probably going to end up having him kill the guy who got robbed. So, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm excited to put the business aspects into this story and actually make it legit. And my question to you guys is, in order for my protagonist to become a businessman, you know, not a very ethical businessman, but a businessman nonetheless, what do you think about me making him a book lover, and he's actually learning all these ideas from books, and he actually like pays people to go to other kingdoms and bring him more books? Or is that too far-fetched?
Is he rich enough? Because that would be something.
Yeah. He definitely gets rich.
He definitely gets rich.
Yeah, he gets rich quickly.
The thing is, you can have him as a book lover, but how would a book lover, someone who loves books, know about business and all of that?
Well, I mean, the books are around business.
It's a fantasy story, or
yeah, it's a fantasy story. So that's why I was like, I don't know if that's gonna work. Do fantasy stories have books on business?
Yeah,
not like business for dummies.
Well, if he was borrowing the ledgers of, you know, the libraries or something like that, where they would keep the records of business, you know, going through a kingdom or something like that, I think we can get away with it.
I kind of pictured the dwarf from Game of Thrones, how he's studying all those books. That's how I pictured it, how he's studying battle strategies and stuff like that. But anyway,
you have to have experience with something in order to understand it. I could look at a big book of accounting, and I may be able to decipher a little bit because of basic maths, but I wouldn't be able to actually understand accounting or money laundering. Yeah. So in order to make your character, I like to give him this to make it actually possible. Either he's got to be super intelligent, like Walter White level, or he's got to have some sort of history. It could be.
Or he was an apprentice and was dismissed, and that becomes part of his angst of why.
That's a good idea.
Or his father ran a business, and his father was a merchant, and he saw how his father had to be very outgoing, or how he had to deal with the clients and the suppliers and stuff. Like, basically, just give him a little bit of context, and then his intelligence can fill in the blanks with the information that he's learning.
Wow, those are some really good ideas. I hate whenever somebody gives you such a good idea and then you actually like crap, it's better than my idea. So you have to go back and rewrite your whole outline, you know? So
yeah,
that's good. I really like that.
That doesn't really happen to me, Stevie. Sorry, that's just that's just an amateur thing.
Wow. See what I tell you, Susan. What I tell you, I have to get my insults in early.
Yeah. Make sure you hit low, eh?
Susan's like, I'm never coming on this show again. Never again. Okay, so we have Pam Harris. I wonder, is that Pam is your friend? Okay.
Pam is actually my editor.
Oh, cool.
Go at her. Yeah.
Like, hello, Pam, the editor. So, well, anyway, I think those are really good ideas, and I feel kind of stupid for having my mind closed. I feel like once I have the outline, I'm like closed off, and I don't want to change it. You know, even though there might be a better idea out there. So, and part of that is wanting to spit out a book every 2 months to keep up with your author brand, 2 to 3 months. So, and that's stressful too. But, and Susan, what you won an award for your book. How did you learn about this contest, and what contest was it?
The contest was part of Chanticleer Reviews, which is a review site. I think they've been around probably about 4 years now, and I kind of looked into them. But when Seer came out, I was just looking for some opportunities to, get it reviewed more or less. And, hey, here was a place you could actually go and pay $345 and get a review, or you could just enter the contest for, $65. And I went, oh, well, free review if I win. So I decided to just put it in the contest, right? And it just kind of went from there. So Seer ended up winning first place. So I have a first place ribbon. I should have brought them over here. Actually, could have showed you. For the best YA fantasy mythology subgroup for 2016, and then it actually won the full Dante Rossetti, which is the best YA fiction in 2016. So it was the grand prize winner. Yeah, so it was really cool.
Very nice. And this website is for Amazon reviews?
No, Chanticleers. No, it's a review company service. So you can hire to have them review a book for you, or you can enter the contest, and it runs once a year in April, the contest. There's, I think, about 17 or 18 different categories, for all different types of fiction that you can enter.
And so do you only write YA?
I primarily YA. I'm kind of into some, new adult, also, but yeah, that's where I write.
So what is the difference between YA and, just regular fantasy?
YA has to be relevant to the audience that you're targeting. So for me, it's really 16 to 18-year-olds is my target group. But YA, in YA world, we say YA is everybody, because everybody reads YA. So Harry Potter is definitely a YA series. But obviously this to people that are much older, right through.
Yeah, so. It doesn't necessarily involve exclusively young adult characters. Most, like 95% are young adult characters, but it's
your protagonist is usually a young adult.
But the issues of the characters are relevant to young adults.
Right. So usually it's a coming of age story, or has some kind of, arc along that line, which is something I've always enjoyed reading myself anyways. So the hero's journey is something I really invest in when I'm writing. And the young adult market, I like that age group. I like teens. I've always liked teens, and I just feel a connection to that market. So I like to play in that world. And it goes out of YA when it gets, this is really a topic of hot debate, because there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of sex in teens. There's it's that age group that, but primarily, even though you can have those very heavy topics, still at a beginning discovery stage, right? As opposed to the jaded, end up things, the adult end. So yeah.
I think I am one of the, and you know what? If I have to delete this video later on because I become super famous, but I am going to admit that I'm probably the only male fan in the world that enjoyed Twilight. I actually liked it, but I wasn't. I've never been a guy who like has to read some literary like work of art. You know, if the story catches me, I'm gonna love it. A lot of the books that I read, I think a lot of people would be like, "That's garbage."
No, Twilight drove me nuts.
Yeah, well, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, it's because I'm on. You know, there's this clunking of heads right between Twilight and Harry Potter fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
oh,
I'm definitely in the Potter camp. So.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I only read the first book, and then once I read 30 pages into the second, and I was like, okay, this is too much. But I was also 13.
Yes.
And I'm 25 now. So I'm pretty sure I don't think I could pick it up now, but I do remember having fond memories. But I don't remember the last young adult fiction book that I've read. Probably Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Probably Harry Potter. And I know this is not our subject for today, but I was just genuinely curious about young adult fiction. So I think we should, word of the week. Yes, word of the week. Andy, do you have one, or are we going to do the one we talked about right after?
Oh, you know what? Do your word. I have a word, but it's probably not as good as the one that we talked about last week. So hit us with it.
Well, I'll say mine, and then you want to save yours, or you want to spit it out? Is it urinate?
No, it's not urinate.
Okay. Okay, good. Susan's like, what is this? I really hope the viewers. Okay, viewers, listeners, that is a inside joke where I'm not just being childish. Anyway,
it's actually Stevie being childish and trying to use it as an inside joke to cover for it.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it is. Thanks, Andy, for really revealing that to our fans. Oh, and before I get to the word of the week, I want to thank all of our listeners and all of our viewers on YouTube. We have just hit 100 subscribers. Thank you so much.
We did?
Yes, we did.
That is so cool. I saw 95 today.
Yeah, it's at 100. Yes, Susan, you are at a momentous episode. So thank you all very much. We really appreciate doing these. We really enjoy doing these videos, and it's not just so we become. What is the word? I had that. But I had a business word.
Maybe you should translate your business experience into real life first.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. The word of the week is guttural. Gutter. What was it?
Guttural. Yes.
Guttural. Yes. Guttural. Like I am going to. I was going to say something towards you, Andy, to insult you, but I can't think of one.
Thank you, Stevie.
Guttural. Like a guttural moan. Could you say that? Like.
Well, the word, it literally means produced in the throat.
Yeah,
sounding.
A growl. Very guttural.
It's like a growl, but it's like dirtier. If that makes sense, it's the sort of like picture the kind of noises that are made in a gutter. That sort of the burbling.
Or something that's been shot as they're dying. Yes. Guttural.
Susan, yes, I use guttural in my novel, and what happens is an arrow is shot into a guy's throat, and he moans gutturally or something as he falls into his own pile of blood. So, guttural, where Andy and I are bringing back the dark fantasy into the podcast just a little bit. Andy, wasn't this podcast supposed to be just dark fantasy or something at the begining?
I don't think so. I felt like fantasy in all of its forms. I'm finding that all fantasy is there's a lot of similarities between like the dark, epic, high, noble fantasy. They follow a lot of similar things. It's just where you take it. Like with epic fantasy or high fantasy or noble fantasy, you get 2 steps forward, 1 step back. In dark fantasy, it's one step forward, two steps back. There's that same progression of the stories, but dark fantasy, instead of going up, 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 everything just keeps going down. Yeah. It's fun. I like that kind of story.
Susan, you'll like this. I just read a new book on my craft, and fantasy, the #1 emotion we are trying to get out of people isn't lust. I didn't know that. I thought the #1 thing we were trying to bring out of people's lust. I had no idea. No, I'm kidding. It's wonder. It's wonder. And I really like that. I never thought about that. Wonder. We are trying to bring wonder out of people. And that's why my first book, what was it, Andy? Dinosaurs Having Sex. What was it?
Yeah, Dino Erotica.
Dino Erotica. Yeah. Oh, and I remember the word. The reason why the Fantasy Fiends podcast works for Andy and I is because hopefully it will make us an authority in our niche. That's right. We become an authority. And when we have guest authors on, they become an authority. Because, Susan, let's say somebody's talking and you're like, oh, you're an author? Really? And you're like, yeah, I was on the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I was on the Fantasy Fiends podcast. We become experts in the field, and it's really helping me out because I have two wonderful authors here, Susan and Andy, who have written amazing books, and I'm getting to just bask in the information that they bestow upon me. So that was the word. And so when are we going to get to this reading? Susan, can you tell us a little bit about your book, the one we're going to be reading about today?
Yeah, so my series is Hawaii mythology. So think of Percy Jackson crossed with Lord of the Rings. Basically, I pull on about 4 different types of religion to pull my characters together. There's a heavy Judeo-Christian element. There's a lot of Norse in there. There's a lot of Celtic. And the 4th one is Native Indian. So I pull on those 4 sets of mythologies to create my heroes and my anti-heroes.
That sounds like a lot of research.
Yeah, I'm just trying to meld them all. So it's a demigod mythology series that is about 4 siblings who are vying for control of all the souls of the dead.
Oh.
Those who control the souls of the dead control the souls of the living. So it's got a very heavy reincarnation theme throughout the series. Yeah. So in this first book here, I don't want to really give away the beginning, but you can read it on Amazon anyways. So.
Oh, that was smooth.
I basically kill my 2 heroes in the first 3 pages. I kill them, and then they're reborn across their souls are transmuted by a wizard to be born on the other side of the realm.
What you should do is just delete the rest of the book and just have those first 3 chapters and see what reviews you get.
I broke every cardinal rule, right? The cardinal rules are you're never allowed to kill animals or torture animals, right? Never, never, never. You never kill babies. And I forget what the 3rd one is, but there's 3 things you never do in young adult fiction.
I did not know that. I agree with the animal one. I can't read about it.
Yep.
That's a real one.
Yeah. So that's where the series starts, and it's very much, this book is very much the hero's journey. I chose not to reinvent the wheel for a lot, so I rely a lot on those tropes that are already established in fantasy for the basic platform, and then I take the book new directions.
I think that's a really good idea. I've read a lot about the importance of tropes, and I from what I've read and the case studies I've seen, it is not a good idea to reinvent the wheel. Stick with the tropes.
Yeah, the wheel works just fine.
Yeah, the wheel of time, yes.
You have to bring in your own elements, but it's a real learning curve, I think, when you try and take something so far out in left field that sometimes people will put it aside and say, I can't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
This isn't what I was looking for. They expect a certain thing, right? So if you go into a Star Wars convention, you don't reinvent Princess Leia. You can't put blonde hair on her. She's got to have the brown and the buns, right?
Of course. You want to make somebody mad, you'll make me mad.
Right. Yes, and they'll call you out on that kind of thing. So.
Yoda is now blue, everybody. there would be an uproar. Please excuse me really quickly. Andy, do you think we should start transitioning to the reading?
Yes, I definitely think we should.
I'll be right back and turn on some lights. 1 second.
Okay. So Susan, we have, how many parts are there in this thing that you sent us in this scene?
There's a few. The main protagonist is Heroin, so that would be one voice too. His buddy is Darius, who's another gentleman. Oops, trying to find my thing here.
The scene that I have here, it's
there's a few.
Caden and Darius and Sergeant Perez.
Right, are the three main characters in the scene.
So we'll read from chapter 19.
Sure, they're short chapters.
Okay. So well, what kind of person is Sergeant Perez? I feel like I should play Sergeant Perez because I really want to get into the role of drill sergeant.
Yeah, he does not like Caden. He does not.
Okay.
He's been.
Now, does he have an accent? That's my main question.
No, not really. I envision him as an overweight, middle-aged wannabe.
Are you talking about me?
Maybe
I'm back. I'm back, by the way.
Yeah. So yeah, he doesn't like Caden. He's someone who definitely wants to see the worst happen to him. So he puts him through hell basically while he's in the army. So.
All right. Well, I would love to read the Sergeant Perez character.
Okay.
Susan, would you prefer to do the voice of Caden or the narrator?
I'll do the narrator.
All right, Stevie. And I'm assuming Caden's kind of a young man?
Yes, he would be. He's 17.
Perfect.
Oh, okay. So I'm reading Caden?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. And he's a younger dude. Okay. I'll just do my own voice.
Own voice.
I'm sorry?
I said, do your own voice. It sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So we ready to go?
I am.
Okay. So chapter 19. Build into a pattern for Caden. Roll call at dawn, breakfast, sword training, pike drills, and a break for lunch, and then hand-to-hand combat, flail and shields, and finally ending with halberds. Dinner would follow, and then roll call before settling down for the night. He slipped off to Ziona's for his fittings, sharing dinner with her on those evenings. He found her to be a smart and engaging companion, quick of wit and with a cheery disposition. He enjoyed her company immensely. He also enjoyed learning the forms of the sword and the pike drills. He left him heavily bruised as he was not as tall or as strong as the others in his training group. Some of those men reminded him of gorillas because their arms were so long. Caden swore they would drag on the ground if they relaxed them enough. Caden, however, was quick and light in his feet, perfectly suited to sword play. His skills improved rapidly. Sergeant Perez never failed to set Caden up to receive the worst of the positions with the worst equipment he could find. Loathed Caden. His narrowed eyes followed him everywhere, his hatred nakedly displayed on his face. Caden found himself watching his back. Sergeant Perez had gathered a set of sycophants who shadowed him like he was a lord. 2 weeks into this new routine, Sergeant Perez arrived at the training grounds with some older men of high rank. Sergeant Perez's evil grin split his fleshy lips, displaying yellow teeth and a satisfied expression spread across his face. He looks triumphant. Caden broke out into a sweat, shivering in the breeze, tugging at his shirt. Someone had just walked across his grave.
Line up, you lazy scum! Inspection!
Harris roared. They took their positions and snapped to attention. The tall, thin officer had a hooked nose that he stabbed into each of the men's faces, inspecting them with an intensity that frightened Caden. Perez followed in his wake, re-inspecting the line of nervous men as though attempting to read the secrets they hid. Perez, arms clasped behind his back, watched the reaction of the officer as he walked the line, intently examining each face. He paused when he reached Caden, his narrow eyes searching his face.
Bring the 2 guards who were with Sanders on guard duty that day.
Harris's grin widened maliciously. 2 men jogged up to the group, dressed in scout's camouflage, and saluted before Paris. Kate had not seen them in the camp since their arrival. Sir, they snapped to the 2 officers.
Do either of you recognize any of the men in this lineup?
The 2 scouts slowly walked past the line of men at attention, and one paused directly in front of Caden. His eyes roved over Caden's features, studying him intently. Straightening, he turned to Sergeant Perez and said, "Yes, this man is the one. This man was with the heavier set man who fought like a cornered badger. I do not know if he killed Sanders, though." It was enough for Perez, however.
Caden Tiernan, you are under arrest for murder.
He motioned to a couple of his cronies standing in a little ways at the back.
Bind his hands and take him to the prisoner tents.
Caden's tent mates roared their disapproval as he was roughly dragged out of line and his arms yanked behind him and tied securely with a length of rope.
Back in line, you scum, unless you want to join him.
Darius caught his eye, shock and sadness painted on his face. Caden shook his head slightly, warning him not to get involved. Caden recognized the soldier who identified him now. He was the one of the 3 who had surprised him and Ryder that miserable day. The nameless soldier grinned as evilly as Perez did.
Stevie, you read this part. Put a lot of power to it.
You thought to escape our justice by hiding in our midst. You will live to regret that day, boy. You will regret it very much, I think.
He said softly.
Oh, he said softly. Quite the opposite.
The threat in his voice made Caden's mouth go dry. He did not answer. The guard turned scout, punched him hard in the stomach. Caden doubled over, vomiting on the grass. He only kept his feet because his arms were being held by the 2 soldiers who had bound him. The soldier lifted his head and punched him in the face. Caden's head snapped back and he felt his nose break. Blood sprouted and ran down his face, dripping off his chin. Rough hands jerked on his arms, hauling him away. The canvas sack was pulled over his head. He stumbled in his captor's grip, the uneven ground tripping his feet. His eyes watered with the pain of his broken nose. Twice more, he was randomly punched in the stomach, eliciting a groan. Once they let him fall to the ground and then proceeded to kick him with sharp-toed boots. Caden thought he heard Paris chuckle. He felt a rib crack. Groaning, he could not do nothing to stop the beating. He couldn't even protect himself with his hands tied behind his back. Suddenly it stopped and Caden was hauled to his feet again. He collapsed as the world tilted around him. They dragged him the rest of the way and with the last shove threw him into what felt like a cart. The bag was ripped from his head as he fell, still bound. A metal-sounding door clanged shut and there was the sound of a key being turned in a lock. Waves of nausea washed over Caden as the world spun and he vomited. Everything receded from Caden in a rush and he slumped unconscious to the wooden floor.
Damn.
Nice.
That has the flavor of dark fantasy written all over it.
Yeah, I was just about to say, so much pain, you're bringing a guy to vomiting.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that so much. Yes.
In writing, you mean, Stevie?
Oh yeah. That's what I meant. Sure. I'm some psychopath.
Right. Masochist is the word, Stevie.
Oh, like I like it done to me. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, that's exactly. You know what? I'm about to make this show rated R, so I'm going to be quiet now.
You don't want that tag.
No.
Does YouTube rate stuff? Do they have ratings for their shows?
Well, you can get a illicit tag that goes on.
Yeah, and then you have to, some videos you have to actually, accept that you are over the age of 18. So we don't want that, but I think it has to be pretty explicit to do that. Susan, am I right?
I think so. Not that I go there.
Yeah. If you're not watching, guys, her eyes are very shifty. That's great. So that's all we're reading today, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a cool little scene.
Yeah, it's Andy, I really liked how you said inspection. I wasn't expecting that. And
unleashing my inner drill sergeant. I'm actually really looking forward to it because as soon as I finish the story I'm working on now, I'm going to be writing a military story. And so I've been talking with military people or former military people to get like what it's like to live in these sort of environments and stuff. And so I'm going to have tons of fun with it.
Military fantasy?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Is that a subgenre?
Yeah, you know, military science fiction is one of the hot new genres. It's basically, you know, like the starships, but instead of explorers or space opera, it's military. So whether it's, you know, fighting aliens, fighting other military, but it's all, you know, it's all revolving around war and the ranked officers and the non-coms and the grunts who fight it, basically. But I don't know how popular of a genre military fantasy is. It's just something that I've wanted to write, and it's something I'm looking forward to writing because it's, you know, the military, there's so much more than just the war. There's the dynamic between the people. Like the story that I'm writing is for the Ragged Heroes anthology.
Yeah, I get started on mine.
Yeah. and yeah, so it's basically these guys who are sort of the shitty company of all the recruits and the losers and the washouts, and they end up, you know, in a place where they have to defend people against overwhelming odds, sort of thing. But it's, you know, it's fun military because you get to look at the dynamic between the soldiers and then the different military orders. You know, how the infantry always saw cavalry as jumped up ponces, and the cavalry always saw the infantry as, you know, low life scum. And then there's the special forces, you know, the guys with the extra training, and then you've got the officers. There's the good officers, the bad officers. You know, it's just so much fun to explore the different dynamics in the military, and so I'm looking forward to this story.
Yeah, you sound like me with the drug cartel, you know, because I've always been, you know, once I got out of my own drug cartel in real life, it's going to be a form of expression. So.
Yeah. Work with what you know.
Yeah. Meth. Lots and lots of meth and heroin. But that was my weekend drug. Meth was every day.
You have all your teeth, Stevie, so it can't be meth.
I have all my what?
Your teeth. When people who smoke meth, they usually get this like the ring of brown right in their two front teeth.
Oh, these are fake. Wow, I'm really lame. Like my jokes are not funny today, and people are gonna be like, "Man, this guy is like not really funny. He's just goofy." Like I feel sorry for. He said he had a girlfriend, right? God, that poor girl.
thinking it the whole time, but not saying it. That's sort of
yeah. And Susan, what do you think about this idea? Andy and I actually doing some kind of Dungeons and Dragons session one of these days. Wouldn't that be cool?
Live on the podcast?
Yeah, live, you know. We would need like some really good dungeon master. I actually tried to get in touch with one, but he never emailed me back. So, but yeah.
You put the call out.
I have a few friends on Facebook who are dungeon masters, or they have games of their own.
That would be awesome.
If we actually made that idea, the idea that I'm just hearing for the first time now, if we actually made it happen. What? Yeah, you've never said anything about it before. I love it.
I thought we've talked about it before. Okay.
We've never talked about a live Dungeons and Dragons game on the thing. The problem with that is that, you know, the amount of time that goes into rolling the characters and then actual gameplay, you know, we're going to have one battle and it's going to take 3 hours.
Yeah, you can do short campaigns of hour and a half, 2 hours. You just got to have the right scene. If you talk to the people, you can. Susan.
Now, what you do is you set it up for like New Year's Day, and you just let the cameras roll for 24 hours.
That's pretty cool. You get on Google Hangouts, you can do 8 hours at a time.
Oh, there you go.
Dang.
See?
That's
or
awesome.
6 to 8. I don't remember exactly. I think it might be 6 to 8.
Yeah, I'm not going to be on camera for any longer than 6 hours. I think I would die.
I would die because my girlfriend would murder me.
Yeah. So, Susan, for your fans, can you give us a little background on why you started writing, when you started writing, something like that? You know, before we end the show, so a little flavor for your fans.
Yeah, I've always loved reading. I've always been, you know, I'm the original book nerd. You know, always had 1,000 books around me. You know, I cut my teeth on Wheel of Time and, you know, I really love the Sword of Truth series, so I've always been reading a lot of fantasy, you know, Harry Potter being the latest, you know, bunch that I really got into. And I started writing Seer when basically my company went through corporate merger. I wasn't really sure I would be around much longer, and I thought, well, if I'm going to give this a shot and really go after my passion, then this is my chance to do that. So, you know, I kind of took the last few years of my corporate time and started writing, started learning the industry, and, you know, doing all the research, and, you know, finding all the cool people that, you know, the indie crowd that hangs out online, and start learning from everybody, and, you know, putting together what I put together in preparation for this day. So, you know, my writing, I've always written well. You know, when I finally broke down and told my parents that, hey, I decided I'm going to write, they said it's about time.
Oh, that's
you know,
awesome.
Yeah, like, you know, and I'm thinking, really, I never knew you felt that way, but yeah.
So your parents already knew that you had this aura around you, that you were supposed to be a writer.
Well, just from high school days, apparently. You know, I was always scribbling something, and, you know, you forget these things about yourself when you get older. You'll find you've forgotten. And, you know, but your parents don't. And so, you know, they'll come back and say, oh, yeah, you used to just sit and scribble these stories all the time, and you were always writing something, and, you know, and, you know.
And you know what's sad? I think we all know that one person who would make a fabulous writer, has so many ideas, and they just can't sit there and finish the book.
Yeah.
And that's a depressing thought. You know, what if I was like that and I couldn't commit to something? As you know, because novels are amazing achievements. Even if it goes nowhere, you've written a freaking novel. You know, and
to complete it, to actually put the end on it and actually finish something. So
your audience is younger. Do you have any tips for any of them that, you know, might want to be a writer one day?
My audience actually is older. You know, there's not a lot of YA at this point in time. I'm sure there's a bunch in there. But really, YA is every age group. So it's a very wide group. And when I do, you know, get some feedback on ages and that through, you know, things like, you know, Facebook ads and stuff like that, my audience tends to be 30 to 65, believe it or not. So it's, yeah, and the younger crowd too, but it does tend to be older, you know, older people like YA fantasy.
That's interesting. So your target audience is a younger crowd, so you have to write towards them, but in doing so, you're actually targeting your older audience.
You're keeping everybody.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that. And I wanted to ask you more questions about your company, your corporate merge. I'd love to hear about that too, but I won't bore Andy or our viewers or listeners with that. But yeah, wow, Andy. He is, I thought you were hanging yourself.
Talk about dark, man. I was just pretending to fall asleep.
Hey, it's very depressing here in Texas right now.
Yeah.
With the weather. So, well, I think that's all the time we have today. Am I right, Andy?
Yep, that's us. That's our time, guys. So, with no further ado, we're going to say goodbye. Next week, we have the amazing Colby Rice. I still don't know what we're talking about, but whatever it is, it's going to be awesome because that's how
fantastical. Yes. Susan, where can we find you? Where can all your new people find you, your new fans?
All the regular culprits. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, Pinterest, Google Hangouts. I'm around, so just stuff my name in there. There's not too many that with this last name. You'll find me.
You are everywhere, for real.
Everywhere. You can actually Google me, and I pop right up. So.
I've been thinking about getting on Instagram myself. So with this hair and this Abraham Lincoln beard, I think I'd do pretty. I'd be an Instagram model. But okay, Andy, you're right. I always take these endings way too long. Thank you so much, Susan, for being on the show. Andy, do you want to close us out this time?
No, you do the closing so well.
Okay. Join us next week for another awesome, fantastical episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast.
I totally take that back. Up until today, you've done the closing so well.
We really appreciate your time. Please hit that like button and that subscribe button. Also hit the ringer bell if you want to get notifications of our newest episodes. Andy and I are here every Thursday night, so you don't have to have a week where we're not in your lives. Andy, Susan, and I are all three going to get back to the writing, but not me now because I'm going to go eat and take this fat white husky for a walk. But we hope to see you next week.
Don't talk about your girlfriend like that, man. That's terrible.
Jesus, you're so lucky she doesn't watch these episodes, dude. She would hunt you down.
No, she would hunt you down for saying such terrible things about her.
That's true. That's true. This is where I get off all my negative thoughts, all on this show. You know, we live together now, so. Andy, okay, dang it, Andy. Thank you for watching. Thank you for viewing. We hope to see you next week. Susan Faw, thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck with your writing and good luck with your newest series. All right. Next week for the next episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. See you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Bye.